They say being flexible means embracing uncertainty with a smile on your face. Let's talk about mental flexibility while we watch some flexible mechanisms. The goal is to move the red circle from the blue box to the red box. Mental flexibility is sometimes measured by what is called an adaptability quotient. AQ, as this adaptability quotient is often called, is a tool to measure an individual's ability to do things like overcome challenges, or unlearn obsolete knowledge, or make real-time adjustments to change. People with a high adaptability quotient are open-minded, they prioritize developing new skills, they invest in their own learning, and they actively seek to look at situations from other people's perspectives. Let's talk about a few ways to increase your adaptability quotient. So adaptability quotient hack number 1 is to identify who you're willing to take advice and ideas from. Maybe you're thinking more about people who you would never take advice from. But other people will think differently from you. Maybe they're telling you things like, "You're doing it all wrong," or "I wouldn't start from here." But maybe you can become a more flexible thinker by tapping into others' thinking processes. So go identify someone whom you would not normally be willing to accept advice from, and then go accept their advice, or at least listen to it. For example, who reliably gives you odd ideas you hadn't considered or dismissed? Or maybe you need to hear the same thing from more than one person for it to sink in. Okay then, go seek advice from a few different people. People love it when you ask for their advice. Okay, adaptability quotient hack number 2. Learn to wear different hats. Put aside your natural thinking style and try out other styles like you would try on a hat. Try adopting the perspective of someone who is not worried like you are. Consider how a very self-assured person would see the situation. Try adopting the perspective of someone who puts their own needs first instead of others. Or do the opposite if you're that kind of person. There is a thing called a 6 hats strategy, and that has creative thinking names and color codes for 6 different hats you can try on. Adaptability quotient hack number 3. Create standard operating procedures to counteract your default thinking. Have a standard procedure to go down a checklist of common fallacies. For example, the false dilemma. Consider the third way out. Or confusing correlation and causation. I wish science journalists would learn this for sure. Or can think about anecdotal evidence. I wish news reporters would learn this one. Or think about who has the burden of proof. What is the baseline and what is the null hypothesis? You should use the checklist even when you hear something that you agree with. Mark Twain said, "Whenever you find yourself on the side of the majority, it is time to pause and reflect." Mental flexibility hack number 4. Consider your judgments and predictions as merely a rough draft. You can use the psychological technique called ACT, Acceptance and Commitment Therapy. ACT says you can think more flexibly if your first instinct is to assume your thought is just an idea and not assume that it is true. Keep your mind open and never ascribe to malice what can be caused by incompetence. Never ascribe to incompetence what can be caused by laziness. Never ascribe to laziness what can be caused by different priorities. The saying goes, if you cannot change your mind, you cannot change anything. Flexibility quotient hack number 5. Look for evidence that the opposite is true. Confirmation bias flows naturally to most people. That is, seeing the world in a way that's consistent with their existing framework. So deliberately look for the opposite, or even go so far as to assume that the opposite is true. In February of 1936, Esquire magazine published F. Scott Fitzgerald's essay called The Crack-Up, which said, "The test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold 2 opposed ideas in the mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function. Adaptability Quotient hack number 6. Think about momentum. Don't get stuck on an idea. Consider the sunk cost fallacy. Tennis coach Bill Tilden said, "Never change a winning game. Always change a losing one." Flexibility Quotient hack number 7. Step back and approach things from a higher level, big picture. Be flexible about the problem you are having in such a way as to redefine the problem. In the startup world, they call this innovating in the problem space instead of innovating in the solution space. In summary, most people accept their thinking as correct. People rarely engage in these types of deliberate strategies to think more flexibly. You can improve the accuracy and novelty of your thinking and increase your adaptability quotient. Dedicated practice at flexible thinking will set you apart from other people.